Today, we will continue talking about a very difficult subject, how to heal from an affair, part 2. Hi, I'm Dr. B, and I want you to fully enjoy life and experience the freedom God desires for you and those around you. In our last video, we talked about how affairs happen and what questions each spouse needs to answer to decide if they can stay together. I also shared that I was one that was unfaithful to my spouse 25 years ago, and we ended up getting a divorce. I was remarried almost 15 years ago and have a marriage now that follows God's design for marriage as seen in His holy word. But today I will share with you how to heal from an affair and what steps need to be taken to rebuild trust again. In fact, I have a chapter in my book, Real Forgiveness, dedicated to forgiving an affair. If you want further education and instruction, you can get that book. The first question I always ask when a couple come in for counseling and one has been unfaithful is the affair really over? I've had couples come in for counseling and we have worked toward forgiveness and reconciliation. Then we find out the cheating spouse was not honest and just pretending to restore the marriage. Now, if that's you, please understand that attitude will completely destroy any type of restoration that can take place. If you lie to your marriage partner and say the affair is over, and then they find out it's not, you have brutally done more damage to your spouse's heart than you can ever imagine. Now, here are some questions I always ask the first session when adultery is on the table. The first question is always, when and how did the cheating stop? Now, there needs to be a time and a date that both spouses agree it ended. Another question is, what measures have you taken to make sure it's completely over? Now, here's what I have suggested to many couples on how to make sure the affair has ended and no contact will ever be made again. I suggest the cheating spouse call the one they were having an affair with and say something like, I have my spouse on speakerphone because I want them to hear what I'm saying to you now. Our relationship is over. Please do not contact me ever again. No texts, calls, emails, social media, or any other way of contact. We are through. Then make sure you get a verbal commitment from the other person you've been cheating with. They understand it's over. Now, here's another question I always ask. If you were not found out, would you still be in the cheating relationship? I also want to know the feelings the cheating spouse has about ending the affair. Also, I have them share any regrets they now have, and I want to know what they told themselves as they kept the affair going. Now, here's what I've learned as a counselor and what I've been through myself. The one who had the affair must show true sorrow for what they did. Not only for the hurt they caused so many, but for venturing into the affair in the beginning. The one who had the affair must own their actions. Then they must show their spouse they are devoted to them and getting that marriage back on track scripturally. Now, here's a way to find out if the one who's had the affair really wants it to be over. The spouse who cheated must be an open book as it relates to their time and seclusion. They have actually forfeited the right to privacy. The cheating spouse must give all passwords to laptops, cell phones, all social media sites. If a person refuses, that's a big red flag, and I normally will not waste my time playing their games. The spouse that was cheated on has the right to ask for that phone or any device to check when they want. Now, some may not take advantage of that, but knowing that it's there should build trust. Here's another question that I ask counseling couples who are dealing with infidelity. Do you want your marriage to continue? Will you agree to battle for your marriage? If only one spouse wants the marriage to be healed, it's a difficult struggle. As I shared before, my first wife and I tried to make it work, but in the end, I had been too deceptive and could not regain her trust. To keep a relationship together, like I said, there has to be total honesty. One area that the spouse who was cheated on really can struggle with is the secrecy and the knowledge the other person had about your marriage. When you start confiding in a person of the opposite sex about the difficulty in your marriage, that is an affair just waiting to happen. Another question that needs to be asked of the spouse that's the victim, can you move beyond what's happened? Now, honestly, not everyone can. Like I shared in the last video, that's why Jesus gave the exception clause about divorce. Do not get divorced except for marital unfaithfulness. That doesn't mean you have to get a divorce if your partner cheats on you. It's for the person who just cannot move beyond what happened. They need to look at their past generally. Are they able to forgive others? Or are they the type that always hangs on to resentment? If the spouse that was cheated on is like that, there's a big decision that must be made. If you plan to stay married so you can constantly remind your spouse how terrible they are and always have your trump card when something goes wrong that says, yeah, but you had an affair, that's not the way to continue the marriage. The question is, can you genuinely forgive and move forward? Like I've explained in previous videos and in my book, Real Forgiveness, you do not have to excuse what your spouse did to you. Now, here's another area I share with my clients to be very careful. Do you really need to share all the specifics of the affair? This is where I messed up personally when I was trying to bring reconciliation to my first marriage after my affair. I had letters locked up in a box that I would let my spouse read them. In hindsight, that was unhealthy. Once you know the humiliating, mortifying facts, you cannot unlearn them. Now, it's okay to have some knowledge of the affair, like time length and how serious it was, but all the gory details will not help anyone. Now, if you as a spouse choose to forgive, as I said, you will not forget. If your spouse continues to let you know how sorry they are for hurting you, they can actually be there to support you and listen to your hurts without trying to defend their actions. It may take many conversations of listening to the hurts your spouse has and pray together and ask God for reconciliation. Now, if the affair was discovered recently, I know you may feel depressed and rejected. Please hear this. It doesn't have to last forever. If you want the marriage restored, from my experience with couples, it can take a year of working on the relationship to be reassured. It takes a lot of time to get past an affair. And I place an affair right there with emotional traumas in marriage. I will continue to say this about forgiveness. It is a process. The forgiveness is not just for the spouse who cheated. It's for you to quit re-feeling the hurt and anguish all the time. When you do the work of forgiveness, the pain you feel no longer is there with the memory of the affair. But that takes a lot of time and work. To forgive always begins in the mind as a choice. When we want to forgive someone that hurt us, normally our feelings do not go along with the choice. When someone hurts us, the normal human fleshly response is to have the other person pay the price for what they did to you. We want them to feel the same pain we do. When trying to forgive an affair, it's something that cannot be made right. We cannot get the wholesomeness, the innocence back in our marriage. As stated in earlier videos about forgiveness, and it applies here, when we choose to forgive our cheating spouse, then I give up my right to punish. Now, with that said, We must not let our spouse to continue in the wrong direction. If they refuse to ask for forgiveness and do not want to be giving up the other relationship, then we have no choice but to leave. Now, when it comes to healing from an affair, there's no magical bullet. I found through counseling that some couples who put in the work find out their marriage can be stronger. They both have to put in the effort. Now, my prayer is that if you're struggling with a spouse who's hurt you by being unfaithful and they give up the person and allow total accountability and show remorse, you can forgive. Like I said, it takes time. But restoration can take place if you both decide to follow God and make Him top priority in your relationship. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it was helpful, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you will always know when we post new content. Have a wonderful day as you continue finding freedom in your life.